Before Planned Parenthood moved to Bryan, before Life Chains and Operation Rescue, even before most Christians knew what abortion really was, it all started with a movie.
I don't remember where I first saw Assignment Life, but it was a movie that dramatically changed my own picture of what abortion was like. For the first time, helped me to fully appreciate that abortion is not like an appendicitis operation as it's often presented. It really is the taking of human life. And that being the case, I felt like as a Christian it was really my obligation to do what I could to help other people also understand that and hopefully respond in a moral way and certainly in a Christian way. I showed it at our church on a Sunday night. I showed it to our Sunday school class. I invited friends over. My initial concern was that people understand what abortion was about. It was not to try to start a crisis pregnancy center. But as we began to do that, God really began to put on my heart that it wasn't enough to simply say that abortion is wrong and you shouldn't have an abortion unless we were willing to step up to the plate and say, and we're willing to help.
God was working at gathering together the men who would be necessary to complete this task.
We needed somebody to help us with legally incorporating and getting set up as a 501c3 corporation. And Mike Middleton was the lawyer who was willing to come join with us, and particularly to help us with legal issues. Then we had Ed Slovacek, who is an accountant. George McElhaney was a doctor, and then myself, an engineer. It was a neat bunch of people, very committed Christians, very committed to this cause.
The papers were drawn up. Judy Brugger was the director. They had a cubbyhole office and 4 volunteer counselors. Thus, the Crisis Pregnancy Center opened its doors during the spring of 1985. That same spring, my parents opened their hearts to welcome their little daughter, Stacy, into the world, and my journey through life began. This was a day of small beginnings, and here is the story of both of our journeys. In the following years as I began to grow, Walter and his team worked hard to help the center grow. They faced many challenges, not the least of which financial support.
We used to say facetiously at the beginning as we would meet monthly as a board, they should call us the Brazos Valley Financial Crisis Pregnancy Center because every month we would get together and we would be short. I mean significantly short. And so we'd all say, okay, everybody take out their checkbooks and write a check and sort of help to cover the shortfall, which was most of the budget, because we didn't have many supporters.
They also faced the task of informing the community of their presence and informing churches of their mission.
At that time, the idea of a crisis pregnancy center was not very well known.
We began to go around and try to have programs at churches.
We were pioneers in a strange land.
They moved several times the first 3 years, eventually settling on East 29th and Bryan. The ministry grew and expanded as more Christians caught the vision. They began to offer training to an increasing number of volunteer counselors. Churches held baby showers to gather items for the new care closet. And of course, there was the priceless stories of lives saved.
One day I had a phone call from one of the clients, and she called and she was in the hospital and had just delivered a baby that she would have aborted except for our services. And I can remember just thinking, oh God, this is just why we're doing this.
All this time, the Lord had been preparing a new director for the center. In Chicago, Sherry Paul had been trained by CareNet in how to organize and run pregnancy centers. Sherry joined the team in 1991, and her enthusiasm and energy helped expand the ministry as never before. The following year, Sherry traveled with CareNet to Nitra in Czechoslovakia to train the leaders of their first pregnancy center. Their director, Edita, even came to Texas to see how our center was set up. Czechoslovakia was recently freed from communism. Abortions in some cities were as high as 50% of pregnancies. The same year, God was teaching me about missions through GAs, Girls in Action. As a co-leader in the group, my mom looked for opportunities for us to be missionaries in our community. Thus, I first learned about the Brazos Valley Crisis Pregnancy Center.
These blankets and these diaper bags will go to real people with real needs. This one's my favorite. I wonder whether the baby will be a boy or a girl.
I remember the day we delivered those gifts to the center. I was hoping to see one of the moms or babies. The receptionist showed us a model of a 20-week-old fetus. Something changed in my heart that day. The baby seemed so real. I gave it a name and held it until we had to leave. I would never forget that day.